I'm making this video to talk about why I've decided to move away from a vegan diet, at least for the next 3 months. I've been vegetarian for the last 11 years and vegan for the last 6 of those. And I've just noticed that over the last 2 years in particular that my health hasn't quite been where I want it to be. And I'm reaching a point where I'm really willing to question some of my assumptions around nutrition, around veganism, and around meat consumption. My goal with these videos is to show an honest experiment into how adding animal products back into my diet affects me. I'm going to be working with a nutritionist, Dominic Rapson of Origins of Vitality Nutrition, who's going to be just mapping everything out for me. In my mind, this was kind of the best way to give it the best chance of succeeding. I didn't want to do it half-heartedly and kind of just add meat and fish into what I was doing before and hope for the best. I really want to get someone who knows what they're talking about to try and see if they can help some of the things I've been experiencing with and let everyone else see how it works for me. To give some context around some of the things I've been experiencing and where I'm at now, last summer I was probably the healthiest I've been in my life. At the time, I would have told you the vegan diet was working really well for me. But in hindsight, there was probably a few things going on that weren't quite right. And having spoken to Dom and reading a little more about this kind of stuff, like that maybe some of these things that I'd always considered as, it's just how I am, they're genetic, that maybe they are to do with diet, and maybe that I do have something missing in not consuming animal products. I've always had to carefully manage my energy. I've had to be quite conscious of how much I take on in a day. If I train in the morning, I'll normally notice that I crash quite hard after I've come home, and it can really affect how I'm able to concentrate at work sometimes and how much I'm able to be there for people. I also experience fairly regular insomnia. That's something I've noticed over the last 2 years has been hitting me a lot harder than it ever has been before. I noticed that if I have a night of poor sleep now, that it just seems to affect me so much more than it did. I'm certainly not opposed to the idea that I'm getting a little bit older and it's harder for my body to recover. But in the same vein, I'm only 29 years old and I'd like to think that I should still be fairly resilient at this age. Having talked to Dom, he seems to think that the diet is going to have a lot to do with the quality of my sleep and how able I am to stay asleep when I get to sleep. So I'm really interested to see how this new diet affects that and see if there are any positive changes there. I've also had over the last 2 years quite a few really rough injuries that have just taken an extremely long time to heal. One of which was a proximal hamstring tendinopathy. That took probably the best part of 2 years to really feel like I could go back to the things I like to do without worrying about it all the time. Even though I was feeling great relative to how I'd felt before in my life, I think there's still a lot of things that could be improved. I was working with naturopaths and a vegan nutritionist who was really trying to help me fine-tune things. I was spending a lot of money on supplements, which is something that I wasn't super comfortable with. Having to take like 12 pills a day or probably more some days, it just didn't feel right. It didn't feel like something I should be doing. But without those extra supplements, I was worried there was going to be something missing from the diet. In terms of my vegan diet, I really have tried as much as I felt like I could try. I tried the high carb approach, low carb approach, a more balanced mix of everything, whole foods. I've tried having raw in the day, one cooked meal a day. I've been intermittent fasting throughout this whole time. Another thing worth noting is I don't drink at all. I really am health conscious. I've been really trying to do this the right way. It's just not been coming together, I suppose. In November, I was at the gym one morning and something really crazy came up with my arm. I was warming up like I do every day, and all of a sudden my arm felt like I was lifting very heavy weight. I looked at my arm and it turned blue and about twice the size it should be. Really long story short, I got diagnosed with something called McCleary syndrome, which is where my subclavian vein, which runs in between the clavicle and the top rib is being compressed. When I use my arm in any strenuous way, the blood can't flow out of the arm, and so it swells up and turns blue. Because of this, I was living in Canada at the time, and I had to fly back home to the UK, where I'm now living, to kind of get this treated under the NHS. My wife is Canadian, so she's still over in Canada, and we're trying to figure out how to get her a visa to come over and join me here in the UK. The reason for telling you all that is that I think all of the stress of those things seemed to kick off quite a big health event. It just left me feeling extremely low in energy. My sleep was probably the worst it's ever been. And the feeling in my body is just that I wasn't processing or dealing with the cortisol and whatever other stress hormones are kind of coursing through my veins right now. It just wasn't being dealt with properly, and I felt like it was all accumulating. Things were just getting worse and worse, really. So I guess that led me to a point where I was really questioning everything I was doing and really trying to think about how can I put my body in a place where it's best able to heal without just taking more stuff, without taking another supplement, another thing that I'm going to try. And believe me, I've tried a lot. And so that led me to start thinking about, do I need some animal products in my diet? This is something that the naturopath has talked to me about before, but I just wanted to give veganism the best try that I could, because from an ethical perspective, I really believe in it. Even that, there are some things I've been reading lately which are leading me to question some of those assumptions too about the ethical side of things. I certainly don't feel qualified to talk about those yet, but it's just something that's been on my mind. Another thing worth mentioning is I trained quite a lot. Last summer, before everything with the arm came up, I'm strength training 4 times a week, boxing probably 2 to 3 times a week, and just generally very active, very fit. Obviously that training's changed a lot since everything came up with my arm, and I'm trying to figure out how to work around that. But there's going to be kind of a theme of me trying to get my energy back together for training as well throughout these videos. So a little bit about what I am going to be doing over the next 3 months. I'm going to be eating a predominantly meat-based diet, a ketogenic meat-based diet, and the nutritionist has been sending me everything that I'm going to be doing. I actually started experimenting with some of the recipes over this last weekend, and it's certainly been a process adding back in animals into my diet and trying to make peace with that. It's been honestly really quite challenging, but this is just something I'm trying to do for my health right now, and I think it's reaching a point where I have to make it a priority. I'm aware that I might get some flack from other vegans on this, but I really think it's something I need to do for myself. And even, like I say, even on that side, I'm willing to hear both sides of the argument. I'm willing to question my beliefs. I want to understand what is the best way to be an ethical, functional human being that can give their best to the world. That's something I think about a lot, is what good is it to have no impact on the world around you in a negative way if you're also having no impact in a positive way from having a lack of energy and from not being able to give your best self. So that's some of the stuff I'm going to be doing. I think I'm going to try and check in every week and just let you know how it's going. Right now I've been, like I said, experimenting with some of these recipes over the last weekend. I've had no carbohydrates, and I'm kind of in the throes of what I'm told is the keto flu, which has been an interesting experience. My body feels heavy, my muscles feel sore, I feel kind of lazy and a little bit unmotivated. But yeah, Dom tells me this is going to be 4 to 5 days, and I should start to feel a lot more clarity and a lot more energy, and I'll certainly kind of update you all on how that's going next week. So basically I'm really interested to hear everyone's thoughts, everyone's opinions. I'm sure there'll be people on both sides of the fence. People think that I'm pure evil incarnate for going back to eating meat, and I'm sure that there are people who think that I was stupid to have held out this long on a vegan diet. But I'm really interested to hear everyone's opinions. Let me know if you have any specific questions. I'd be more than happy to answer anything. The main updates are going to be coming from next week, when I'm really kind of getting stuck into the diet and seeing if there are any positive changes. Thanks for tuning in. If you're interested in keeping up to date, like and subscribe, and I will keep you all posted.